excited about this interview today as I welcome Gina Taylor with Opana Therapy from New Jersey. And, I was just telling her, I don't know everything. And so I have to seek, resources to kind of help me understand different parts of nature-based therapy. And Gina brings her expertise on hippotherapy, probably animal-assisted kind of supports. And she also does some aquatic therapy at a community pool or a college-based pool, I think is what she had mentioned. But today we're specifically talking more about probably more animal-assisted hippotherapy, those kind of pieces that are definitely a part of nature-based work. And so that is why she is here. So I'm going to have her kind of introduce herself and kind of share what she's doing, because she also has this piece to what she does that really can support professionals. So I would like her to kind of share that too. So welcome, Gina.
Thank you so much for having me. So excited here to connect. And I'd love to share a little bit about my path to get here. I was always a horse kid. I went and participated in 4-H as a child. And when I said to my parents, I want to go to college for horses, instead of being like, get a real job, like, we're not sending you to college for horses, they said, absolutely, like, that's your passion and we would like to see you do that. And that's my undergraduate degree. And when I went to interview for grad school, they're like, how does equine studies have anything to do with occupational therapy? And I said, I have an answer for that. It's called hippotherapy. And it's the specialized way that medical professionals use the movement of the horse. And they kind of like said, well, okay, we could see that. So, this is kind of been a career path for me. And I went maybe from the horses then out into nature-based. So, a lot of people, I think, come maybe a little bit more from the nature-based piece, and then they might be adding or layering in the hippotherapy piece. But for me, it was kind of the opposite.
That's awesome. And so, and she is giving me permission to share all this information. So thank you for that. But you mentioned rhythm. And
Yes.
So let's talk about rhythm, because as you know, this framework is called Rooted in Rhythm. And when I think of horses and being on top of a horse, I think of all that rich sensory input, and including the rhythm of the gait, if you will. So if you could speak to that rhythm. And then I know you also acknowledge the rhythm, the resonance between an animal and a human. And if you could speak to that kind of rhythmical kind of back and forth, I would love to hear that.
Yeah, so we have kind of the real hardcore biomechanical component of rhythm, of the concussive impact of the horse's feet on whatever that surface is. And we can use that for timing of respiration. We can use that in speech language communication. We can see that in processing sensory input, and we can grade that as the therapist directing that treatment session. We can grade that input. And we look to find a horse that their timing and rhythm is going to facilitate what we need from that client, or which direction do they need to go. So for children that tend to be low arousal, right, we might want a little bit of a quicker tempo from that horse to help that child tune into that rhythm. And then for those kiddos that are very high arousal and maybe their timing and rhythm in everything is a little too fast, we might take a horse that has a longer stride and a slower tempo to help them find that just right place, so we can really access that learning and connecting aspect with them.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. That's exactly what we use rhythm for. And that you can bring that in hippotherapy. Okay, so it's not just about, because, I think a lot of people think about kind of the postural control that can be afforded using a horse. But that piece of arousal, I think, is really interesting, where you would even choose the right horse to be a good match for the client that you are serving and whatever their needs are. So I think that's really amazing.
Yeah, and then we can take it a step further and look at the rhythm that goes back and forth between the treatment team. So in our team, if we look at it from a dynamic systems perspective, we have the horse as one system, we have the horse handler as another system, the client, the therapist, and getting all of those rhythms to sync up And really, we call it entrainment, right? We all want to entrain together into that movement of the horse. And we want to see that the client is going to entrain to the rhythm of the horse. And we want to make sure that it doesn't happen the other way, that the horse entrains to the rhythm of the client. So some really sensitive horses can maybe have that need for training so that way they can maintain their own internal rhythm and not entrain to the client.
Oh my gosh, I have never thought of that before. So that comes to in with the training of the horse then.
Yes.
Okay. And so who does that training of the horse? Is it you as the hippotherapist, or is it the horse handler, or
So in the United States, there are no hippotherapists. But somebody who has a horse background that is a therapist might be that person. Often it is your equine specialist. So it could be the horse handler or the horse trainer. But we, as the therapist, need to have the language to
yeah,
explain it to the horse person in a way that they can understand.
yeah, hence the need for a team, really, and the
Yes.
dynamic system as you spoke to. Very interesting. Okay. So now we kind of have an understanding of that, of those rhythms that are important. So tell me more about how you would become that kind of specialist for
So yeah, the foundation of that is the American Hippotherapy Association and their trainings, because that is really the understanding of what does the horse bring to a treatment session? What are the best practices if you're going to be using hippotherapy? So that's the foundation if you're interested in using hippotherapy. And then I offer a training that is more on the nuts and bolts of business of how do you get from taking your dream into a reality, right? How do we bring forth something that is only an idea and get it in the 3D space? So that's really where I want to help other OTs and other professionals that are interested in using hippotherapy.
Cool. And so tell me more about the trainings then and what that looks like. Because I'm thinking, is it one-on-one? Is it a group cohort? So if you could just speak to what your trainings look like, because I think that would be fabulous as we are kind of speaking to entrepreneurs or people that are just wanting to get started in this space, but have the question mark, like, I don't know where to start. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's a huge decision of like, okay, where do I start? And so I found that it really works well for the people that come to me to offer two options. And one is a self-paced option where they can book one-on-one calls with me. And so they go through the material at their own pace. And when they get kind of to a point where they're like, okay, I'm ready to take an action step, they book that one-on-one call. We go through their action plan and then they're ready to go. And then other folks want that social support. And so that's a cohort model. Run one training in the spring and one training in the fall for 8 weeks. That way we really have time to work through the material, talk through the plan. And then once they get through the program, I have alumni calls, every so often, like, hey, we're doing an alumni call. Everybody jump on. Let's find out how everybody's doing.
Love that. I love that. So it could really be for, whatever you prefer as your primary, kind of means of learning, if you will, and maybe time as a factor in that as well. And so would the people that come to you then already be certified as hippotherapists, or is that a requirement? Can you tell me kind of what that looks like?
Right. So I'm not teaching the movement component of how to use the movement. And most people who come through my training have at least taken the American Hippotherapy Association Part 1 course. So that can be taken online or in person. And then, they might be in between taking that Part 1 and going on to the Part 2. Some people are certified through the AHCB, the American Hippotherapy Certification Board. And so they do have a clinical specialty or they're certified, but some people have just started their kind of educational journey and are taking this training alongside.
Gotcha. Okay. And so what would you say about, I just had this thought about kind of therapeutic riding?
Sure. So therapeutic riding is a great adjunct for when our clients have met their medical or clinical goals and they've fallen in love with the horse and they don't need that one-on-one specialized support anymore. And then it's like, well, now what happens? Like, I don't want to take the horse away from them. So therapeutic riding, or called adaptive riding, right? Because the riding lesson is adapted to their needs, is a great discharge plan for those kids that really just fall in love with horses.
So then it becomes kind of this wraparound program where they might be discharged from therapy, but you could still offer this service of therapeutic riding or adaptive riding kind of?
So if you're a certified therapeutic riding instructor and you
Yeah.
have that skill set, then if you want to teach riding as well, for me, I prefer to hand them off and keep it really separate so that they know me as the therapist and then they're going to go to their riding instructor. I will consult with the riding instructor to make sure it's a smooth transition.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yep. Kind of stay with what you do.
Yep.
Okay. Yep.
Yep.
So you have clarity around your niche area. Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. So the name of your business, Epona Therapy. So tell me,
Yep.
is that right? Did I say it right?
Epona Therapy Services, yes, and that is the Celtic goddess of horses and healing. And that just really felt right for me as I was pulling everything together and getting started.
So tell me all of the services that you are currently providing, just a little bit about your kind of business, format, service delivery and all of that. I know you do hippotherapy, but tell me more about your business then too.
Sure. So my husband and I are both licensed occupational therapy professionals in New Jersey, and we have our own private practice. We provide a variety of that would fall under that nature-based umbrella. So we do a forest focus group, which is really for kids with ADD and executive function challenges. We do a developmental play group, and those are both in the forest, in nature. And we bring our therapy goats to those sessions. So that way the children that we're working with can interact with the therapy goats. And we find that really kind of helps to facilitate their participation. And sometimes it helps those kids with ADD, ADHD to slow down. Again, kind of that rhythm component because they're cycling so fast, but the goats are a little bit slower. They like to stop and munch along the way. So that's one component of what we do. And we'll be starting that back up in April because we were just talking, right, of winter and winter's not the best time for that. I contract with 2 different stables where I'm doing occupational therapy at the stable using hippotherapy. So in those cases, I'm seeing those clients at that setting, and we have a clinical space. So we do some movement. Once I get what I need from the movement of the horse and we get off the horse, we go to that clinical space and we work on some of those functional carryover skills. And we have an aquatics program where we are both working with children, but I also run a prenatal occupational therapy group in the pool, which we're really focused on that combination of physical and mental health. So
that's cool. And so it's a group format?
It's a group format.
So new mom or pregnant moms coming to you.
Moms, yes. Yeah, mamas to be.
Mamas to be.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Mamas to be. Yeah. So
I have not thought of that before. That is really cool. So I'm guessing that in the trainings that you provide to professionals, you would talk about kind of the logistic pieces because you mentioned contracting, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Barn space. So I would think
Yes.
that would answer a question of, if I don't have a horse or I don't have a barn, what are my options? So I'm guessing you would speak to that. Like that's what you could do. You could partner with or collaborate or contract a barn space.
And actually having those emails like for people in the program. Here's the email I use to send out to barns.
Yeah.
Take it, make it your own. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. This is what I used. And giving them a little bit of background of the process. I went to 7 different barns.
Wow.
Before I found one that was a match, so it's not like
sure.
It may not be the first one.
Yeah, you really want to interview, get to know them and see if they would be a good fit.
Yes.
I love that. So you give them lots of kind of practical ideas, some even downloadables that they can use right away.
Plug and play. Like I've been doing a long time. I pull it out of the Google Drive and here we go, right, ready to go because it takes a long time to develop those resources, and why not share them with people who are going to need them? Because the more providers out there that are going to be able to serve their communities, the more we can spread that. I can only see so many clients and I want to be home with my family. Like I don't want to work 7 days a week. So the more people that are serving their communities, the more people that are being helped, really.
Right. And so I think as we kind of move to the end here, tell me, I have 2 questions, kind of why you chose to kind of be your own boss, your own an entrepreneur, because we know that it comes with, challenge. It's not just an easy road, but what that has afforded you, which you kind of alluded to with your family. And then if you had any tips for people that are just starting, kind of more of the animal support realm or hippotherapy, if you will. So those are my final few questions.
Sure. The reason why we chose to go, I was an employee. I've worked in nonprofit and for-profit models, and to go the entrepreneur, the private practice route meant that I could practice OT as authentically as my husband and I believed it was meant to be done. And I was tired of having the idea, and then it was like, well, we have to take it to the board and then we'll see. And no, that's not the way I want to practice. And so that has been the most fulfilling part. And the family is the other part. I have 3 young children, and we're able to manage our schedules in such a way that we're able to be home with them and see them grow up and take those days off to go on a field trip or go to a Crayola factory and do all those fun things. And they're growing up like knowing that mommy and daddy are here for them. And we just came home the other day after being at the pool, and my daughter came down and said, "Mommy, I made a new game for your clients." And she had drawn out the circles with different colors on one piece of paper. That was the game board. And she had cut out other colored circles, and the game was to match the colored circles on the board. So it was like, she's already picking up on, what we do, why we do it. Yeah, exactly. I was like, man, you don't have a chance, child.
Love it. Great story.
So that's to answer your first question. To answer the second question about, if this is a dream of yours, and you are dreaming, and I work with a lot of OT students, OTA students, this is a dream of yours, and you imagine your career of having animals involved in it, and like how do you take those first steps? Or for the people who end up in my, like, I've wanted to do this for 6 years, and I like, now is the time. And I would say, find someone that you can shadow, whether it's an internship, a fieldwork placement, just, reaching out. So many in the community are so friendly, like, sure, if you want to come out, or we could use an extra set of hands on a particular day. Like, oh yeah, we're doing this Sensory Saturday event. We could use an extra set of hands. If you want to come out and observe what we do, come out on Sensory Saturday. I could use the help. Find someone to shadow with and see if it is what you think it is. Because you may be glamorizing some of the parts that, when it's cold and yucky, or 95 and sunny, you got to be with it, and then take the steps, take the action. Don't let it be 6 years.
Right. Yeah, I love that advice. Yes. And knowing the reality of it, because it is work, but it's work. And so you just have to make sure it aligns with the vision of what you think it really is, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But more times than not, I think it probably is what you're envisioning, but it is important to go experience it, right?
Absolutely.
And volunteers, yes. Right? We love volunteers. Yeah. So, all right. Well, thank you very much, Gina, for your time. I appreciate it. And I look forward to hearing more about all that you do, and then the professionals that maybe will seek you out and say, yeah, that's awesome. I get to do, what I've envisioned for all these years, and now it's finally coming true. So thank you for being that resource.
Thank you for having me on.
You're welcome. All right. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.